"I know who you are," the Iranian commander said calmly, looking directly into David's eyes across the rooftop in Damascus. After 20 years of hunting, David Rosen finally had his target cornered. But the words that came next shattered everything. "Hello, Dad. I've been waiting for you to find me." The son David had spent 2 decades searching for had become the terrorist he'd spent 2 decades trying to kill. Welcome to Vaulted Secrets. Before we dive into this story of a father's impossible choice, a son's stolen identity, and the moment when love and duty collide in the deadliest way possible, tell me in the comments, would you choose family over country or duty over blood? And if you believe some hunts never truly end, hit that subscribe button. This story will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty. David Rosen was 48 years old when his world ended for the second time. The first time had been in 2003, when his 8-year-old son, Eli, was kidnapped from their Jerusalem apartment. The second time was on a Damascus rooftop in 2023, when he realized the man he'd spent 20 years trying to kill was that same little boy. The story begins in Jerusalem, 2003. David was a rising star in the Mossad, Israel's elite intelligence agency. At 31, he was already leading high-risk operations across the Middle East. His wife, Sarah, was a pediatric surgeon at Hadassah Hospital. Their son, Eli, was 8 years old, brilliant, curious, and fluent in 3 languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and English. On October 15, 2003, David received a call that would haunt him for 2 decades. Sarah's panicked voice. "They took him, David. They took our boy." When David arrived home, their apartment was in shambles. Sarah was unconscious, beaten but alive. Eli was gone. The investigation revealed a sophisticated operation. Iranian intelligence had infiltrated Jerusalem using a network of Palestinian collaborators. The target wasn't random. David had recently led a mission that eliminated 3 Iranian nuclear scientists. This was retaliation, but it was also recruitment. Iranian intelligence had a program, codenamed Operation Cyrus, designed to take the children of Israeli intelligence officers and turn them into weapons against their own country. The psychological warfare was devastating. Not only did they eliminate future Israeli operatives, they created Iranian ones with intimate knowledge of Israeli society. The divorce was finalized in 2005. David had lost his son, his wife, and nearly his career, but he never stopped searching. Meanwhile, in Iran, 8-year-old Eli Rosen was being systematically transformed into Cyrus Hashemi. The process was psychological warfare at its most sophisticated. The Iranian handlers didn't torture the boy. They convinced him his parents had abandoned him. They showed him fabricated videos of David and Sarah celebrating without him. They told him his parents had sold him to Iran because they no longer wanted a child. They created an entire false narrative where his loving family had betrayed him and Iran had rescued him. Eli was placed with a carefully selected Iranian family, Revolutionary Guard Commander Hassan Hassamian and his wife Mariam, who had lost their own son in the Iran-Iraq War. They genuinely loved the boy, gave him the name Cyrus, and raised him as their own. But they also raised him to hate Israel, to see it as the country that had stolen his childhood and abandoned him to strangers. The psychological conditioning was masterful. By age 12, Cyrus genuinely believed his birth parents had betrayed him. By 16, he was volunteering for the Revolutionary Guard. By 18, he was leading missions against Israeli targets. By 28, he had become one of Iran's most effective operatives. David, meanwhile, had returned to active duty, but with a singular focus. Every mission, every operation, every piece of intelligence was filtered through his search for Eli. His colleagues thought he was obsessed. His superiors worried he was compromised. But David's results were undeniable. His personal vendetta against Iran made him Mossad's most effective agent. Over 20 years, David eliminated dozens of Iranian operatives. He sabotaged nuclear facilities, assassinated weapons dealers, and disrupted terrorist networks. But he was always looking for traces of his son. Every captured Iranian was interrogated about Operation Cyrus. Every intelligence breakthrough was analyzed for clues about kidnapped Israeli children. The breakthrough came in 2023. Intelligence intercepts revealed a new Iranian operative called Cyrus Hashami, who was planning a major attack on Tel Aviv. The profile was disturbing: a young man, approximately 28, who spoke perfect Hebrew and had intimate knowledge of Israeli security procedures. David studied the file obsessively. The physical description was tantalizing: height and build consistent with what his son might have become. But there were no photographs, no definitive proof. Just a growing certainty in David's heart that this was his boy. The mission was approved. David would lead a team to Damascus, where Cyrus was coordinating with Syrian allies. The objective was capture or kill. David prayed for capture. The Damascus operation began at 3 a.m. on November 12, 2023. David's team infiltrated the city through a network of tunnels beneath the old quarter. Their target was a safe house where Cyrus was meeting with Hezbollah commanders. The building was 4 stories tall, overlooking the ancient Umayyad Mosque. David positioned snipers on adjacent rooftops, while assault teams prepared to breach from ground level. The plan was textbook: surround, contain, and capture, but Cyrus had anticipated them. When David's team entered the building, it was empty except for a single note in Hebrew: "Rooftop, come alone. We need to talk." David's team leader, Captain Yael Cohen, immediately recognized the trap. "It's an ambush, David. We wait for backup." But David saw something else in that Hebrew note handwriting that looked familiar, like the careful letters an 8-year-old boy had practiced on homework assignments 20 years ago. "I'm going up," David said. "That's suicide. That's my son." David climbed the stairs alone, his Glock drawn but pointed down. Each step felt like a decade of searching, a lifetime of hope and despair condensed into this moment. When he reached the rooftop door, it was already open. Cyrus was standing at the far edge of the roof, silhouetted against the Damascus skyline. He was tall, lean, wearing tactical gear and carrying an assault rifle. But even in the darkness, David could see the familiar slope of his shoulders, the way he held his head. "I know who you are," Cyrus said in perfect Hebrew, turning to face David directly. David's heart stopped. The face was older, harder, marked by 20 years of war and indoctrination. But the eyes were unmistakable, Sarah's eyes, the same green gold that David had fallen in love with. "Hello, Dad," Cyrus continued. "I've been waiting for you to find me." David's weapon trembled in his hands. 20 years of training, 20 years of missions, 20 years of professional discipline, all of it evaporated in the face of seeing his child alive. "Eli?" The name came out as a whisper. "My name is Cyrus," the young man replied firmly. "Eli died in Jerusalem 20 years ago when his parents sold him to strangers." "That's not true," David said, tears streaming down his face. "We never stopped looking for you. I never stopped." "Really?" Cyrus pulled out a tablet and showed David a video, the same fabricated footage the Iranians had used to deter him. "This was taken 3 months after I was kidnapped. You and Mother at a restaurant, laughing, celebrating. You looked very happy for parents who had lost their child." David stared at the video. It was clearly manipulated, probably created using technology that hadn't existed in 2003. But to an 8-year-old boy, it would have been devastating proof of abandonment. "They lied to you," David said. "We never gave up. Sarah left me because I couldn't stop searching for you. I've spent 20 years hunting across the Middle East, following every lead, chasing every rumor." "Hunting," Cyrus repeated. Interesting choice of words. Because I know what you've been hunting, David Rosen. Agent Identification 2847, Mossad Operations Division. In the past 20 years, you've killed 43 Iranian nationals, destroyed 6 nuclear facilities, and sabotaged countless operations. David felt cold realization creeping in. You know who I am. I've known for 5 years, Cyrus confirmed. Since I gained access to Iranian intelligence files, I know you're my biological father. I know you've been searching for me. And I know you've been killing my people while you searched. Your people? Iran saved me when Israel abandoned me. Iran gave me family when my birth parents threw me away. Iran is my country now. David holstered his weapon slowly. What do you want, Eli? I want you to understand something, Cyrus said, raising his own rifle. I've been planning this moment for 5 years. I could have killed you dozens of times. In Prague, when you eliminated Dr. Farid. In Dubai, when you sabotaged the arms shipment. In Beirut, when you thought you were so clever with that car bomb. David's blood chilled. You were watching. I was protecting Iranian operations while letting you get close enough to find me. Because I wanted this conversation. I wanted to look my biological father in the eye and tell him that his son is dead. You're not dead, David pleaded. You're right here. You're alive. We can fix this. Fix what? Cyrus laughed bitterly. 20 years of conditioning? 20 years of believing my parents abandoned me? 20 years of building a life, a career, a purpose based on hatred for Israel? Come home with me. This is my home, Cyrus gestured toward Damascus. These are my people. This is my war. David took a step closer. Sarah never remarried. She kept your room exactly the same for 10 years. She still has your clothes, your toys, your drawings on the refrigerator. For just a moment, something flickered in Cyrus's eyes. A memory, perhaps, of a different life. Sarah, he said quietly. Mother, she loves you, David continued. We both love you. We never stopped. Love, Cyrus repeated. Is love abandoning your child to strangers? Is love celebrating while he suffers in a foreign country? Is love building a career on hunting the people who raised him? We didn't abandon you. They stole you from us. And you stole everything from them. Cyrus's voice cracked with emotion. Do you know how many Iranian children have lost their fathers because of your operations? Do you know how many families you've destroyed while searching for your precious son? The accusation hit David like a physical blow. He thought of all the men he'd killed, all the operations he'd sabotaged, all the revenge he'd taken in Eli's name. I was trying to find you, David said weakly. You were trying to salve your conscience. You were trying to make the pain stop by causing pain to others. You became a monster, Dad, just like the people who took me. They stood in silence for a moment, father and son, separated by 20 years of lies, conditioning, and war. So what happens now? David asked. Now you choose, Cyrus said, lowering his rifle slightly. You can try to take me back to Israel. You can attempt to rescue me from the only family I've known for 20 years. You can force me to undergo psychological evaluation and deconditioning, trying to turn me back into your little Eli. Or you can let me go. You can accept that your son made his choice. You can stop the hunt and let both of us move forward. Move forward to what? You planning terrorist attacks on Israeli civilians. I protect Iranian interests, Cyrus said firmly, just like you protect Israeli ones. Those aren't the same thing. Aren't they? Cyrus pulled out another tablet, showing surveillance footage. This is footage from your operation in Tehran last year. You killed Dr. Rahman, a nuclear physicist. Did you know he had 3 children? Did you know his youngest daughter was 8 years old? The same age I was when you lost me? David stared at the footage. He remembered the operation, remembered eliminating the target. He hadn't thought about the man's children. War has casualties, David said. Yes, it does, Cyrus agreed. And sometimes the casualties are 8-year-old boys who get stolen from their families and turned into weapons. The weight of what Cyrus was saying settled over David. His son wasn't just a victim of Iranian conditioning. He was a victim of the entire cycle of violence that had consumed the Middle East. There's a third option, Cyrus said suddenly. What? You could stay. David looked at him in confusion. Iran would welcome the defection of a senior Mossad operative, Cyrus continued. You have 20 years of intelligence, operational knowledge, asset networks. In exchange, you could be reunited with your son. You want me to betray Israel? I want you to choose family over country, just like you've been asking me to do. The parallels hit David like a sledgehammer. He was asking his son to abandon everything he'd known for 20 years, everyone he'd loved, everything he'd built his identity around. The same impossible choice he was being offered now. I can't, David said. Neither can I, Cyrus replied. They stared at each other across the rooftop, both understanding that they had reached an impasse that love alone couldn't bridge. So this is how it ends? David asked. This is how it ends, Cyrus confirmed. You go back to Israel. You tell them Cyrus Hashemi was killed in Damascus. You close my file. You stop hunting me. And you? I continue my work. But I avoid operations against Israel. I request transfers to other theaters, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. We never cross paths again. That's not much of a reunion. It's the only reunion possible, Cyrus said sadly. We're both soldiers, Dad. We both serve countries that are at war. The fact that we're family doesn't change that. David felt tears on his face again. After 20 years of searching, he had found his son alive. But the boy he'd lost was truly gone, replaced by a man he couldn't save and couldn't destroy. I love you, David said. No matter what name you use, no matter what uniform you wear, no matter what country you serve, you're my son. I know, Cyrus replied, and I love the memory of my father, even though I can't love the man he became. They stood in silence as dawn began to break over Damascus. David could hear his team moving in the building below, growing impatient. Go, Cyrus said, before they come looking for you. David turned toward the stairwell, then stopped. If you ever change your mind, if you ever want to come home, there's a cafe in Jerusalem called Hol Shilsham. I'll be there every Friday at 2 p.m. for the rest of my life. I won't come, Cyrus said, but it's good to know you'll be waiting. David walked to the stairs, then turned back one last time. What should I tell your mother? Tell her Eli grew up to be a good man, even if he couldn't be the man she wanted. David nodded and disappeared into the stairwell. Cyrus watched him go, then melted into the Damascus dawn, vanishing as completely as he had 20 years earlier in Jerusalem. When David emerged from the building, Captain Cohen was waiting anxiously. Where's the target? She asked. Dead, David lead. Killed himself rather than be captured. The body fell into the courtyard and was recovered by Syrian forces. The mission was filed as a qualified success. Cyrus Hashemi was officially listed as eliminated, and the threat to Tel Aviv was considered neutralized. David returned to Tel Aviv and requested immediate retirement. He was 48 years old, with 25 years of service and more commendations than any active agent. His request was approved. 3 months later, David was sitting in Timol Shilsham Cafe in Jerusalem, reading a book and drinking coffee. It was Friday, 2 p.m. He would be there every Friday for the next 15 years, until his death from cancer in 2038. Cyrus, meanwhile, requested and received transfer to Iranian operations in Afghanistan. He never returned to anti-Israeli activities. He served with distinction for another decade before retiring to raise a family of his own. He named his son Eli, neither father nor son, ever spoke of their Damascus meeting. David never told Sarah what had really happened, allowing her to believe their son had died as a terrorist, rather than live knowing he had chosen Iran over Israel. The truth died with David in 2038, but every year on October 15th, the anniversary of Eli's kidnapping, Cyrus would visit a small mosque in Tehran and pray for the family he had lost and the father who had never stopped looking for him. Some hunts end in tragedy. Some searches end in heartbreak. And sometimes, finding what you've lost means discovering that love isn't enough to bridge the spaces that war creates between people. David spent 20 years hunting his son across the Middle East. When he finally found him, he realized that the boy he was searching for had died long ago, replaced by a man shaped by the same violence that had driven the search. In the end, both father and son chose duty over blood, country over family, and the terrible logic of war over the simple truth of love. Because sometimes the people we're hunting are hunting us right back. And sometimes the greatest tragedy isn't losing someone you love, it's finding them and realizing they can never come home. So I ask you, if you spent 20 years searching for someone you loved, only to discover they had become everything you fought against, what would you choose? Love or loyalty? Family or country? The person they were or the person they became? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us about the impossible choices you faced, the hunts that changed you, or the moments when love wasn't enough to overcome the damage that time and distance had done. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Vaulted Secrets. We're here to explore the weight of impossible choices, the price of unconditional love, and the tragic irony that sometimes finding what we've lost means losing it all over again. Because sometimes the people we hunt become the people hunting us. Sometimes love isn't enough to bridge 20 years of war. And sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. Thanks for watching, and remember, some searches end in reunion, but others end in the painful recognition that some distances can never be crossed. No matter how much love remains on both sides,